Alrighty, so we are on the last step, well, kind of last step of the coaching process where we are talking about improving after you have implemented the strategy. Basically, I've gone through and decided that, or we decided that I was going to come and watch you while you were doing the Pear Deck over the Shakespeare background notes. And so we came in there, and just some of the notes that I have, and we'll talk about the specific data in a second. Basically, the kids were really engaged. You were doing really awesome. It was very fun.
Yay.
We can tell that you love Shakespeare and
I do love Shakespeare.
Did really, really good on that. Definitely more interesting than the grammar lesson, I must say. But just having that extra element with what we were doing through Pear Deck, that was really cool. And so we're going to go through kind of just more of the specific data with some of the stuff. And I'm actually going to go grab the checklist. Alrighty, so I have grabbed your the observation sheet. So I used the same thing from before, kind of that pre-test, post-test data, and I grabbed the student engagement through Pear Deck checklist that we talked through during the last video. So first we're going to talk about this. Beforehand, you had mostly 4s and 5s, so that's pretty standard, pretty good for a high school classroom. This time, you had mostly 6s and 7s. The kids were really engaged when it was like, is it hip hop or Shakespeare? They were really engaged on finding Stratford upon Avon on the map. They were really engaged with all the different added Shakespeare elements in the videos and types of things. So great job on that.
Yeah, they like the virtual tour they were going with their laptop.
Yes,
it was cute.
Yes, the actual walking around the globe. That was really cool. So I feel like that was good. Definitely heading towards our goal. And then just kind of I took notes on the engagement checklist. Introduce the session with a relevant, relatable question. You did that with the, is it hip hop or Shakespeare? Some of them got it right, some of them got it wrong, and they were talking about their mad street cred with knowing about rap music. And then including visuals to accompany the text information. We had lots of that. Using video and website resources to self-explore content. So looking up the information about Shakespeare, exploring the globe on their own, and that different type of thing. And I think I had some kids, they were kind of looking up stuff about the globe burning down and whether or not the original building that it was today and stuff like that. Utilize different question types as checks for understanding. You had the draw questions, the number questions, the just kind of multiple choice questions and those different types of things. So that was good. Allow for breaks every 15 minutes. That was kind of built in as those kind of the exploration activities and the videos, and that worked really well. And then present with enthusiasm, which you did because you love Shakespeare and you just have the kids on board, and that's great. So based on this, you did really, 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 really good. Thanks. And so now we're going to start looking at some of the questions I'm going to ask you to kind of see where we're at and where we're going from here.
Okay.
All right, so I have some of the questions written down, some of the questions on my phone.
Okay.
So we'll just have to kind of deal with that when we get to that. All right, so the first question is, given the time we have today, what's the most important thing for us to talk about?
I think just in terms of how I can keep it going, because one of the things that I kind of struggle with is I'll find a cool new thing and I'll be like, this is cool and new. And then I'll do it a couple times and then it will never happen again.
Yeah, I feel like that happens a lot to us with like every new kind of technology tool they throw at us. Okay, and then kind of like what's on your mind?
Well, I'm a little bit worried about what happens when the Pear Deck trial is over. Like what goes away?
Yeah, kind of some of those premium question contents and like just maybe kind of in the future getting maybe a premium account of Pear Deck might be fun. So yeah, that makes total sense. Okay, so just kind of keeping that type of thing in mind. So the next thing I'm going to ask you as kind of thinking back on this process or the whole implementation of the Pear Deck, like what has gone well?
I really like that you can see what's going on the dashboard, that you can give like individualized guidance if they're really off topic or not even necessarily off topic, but not understanding what they're supposed to do. Because I had some kids, and especially in the part where it was like label the iambic pentameter, where they were just like, what? And they would start labeling the question. I'd be like, no, you don't need to label the question. Or they would circle the words, and I'd be like, use the symbols. So it was a good thing to kind of be able to redirect them with a little bit more specificity. I really like the self-tour of the globe. I think that's really cool. And it's something that impresses upon them that this is a real place, that this place they could go to. You know, they can aspire to go and see these things that they think are cool. I liked having the videos kind of already into the Google Slides. I'm kind of already jumping ahead to what I want to do with it next time, like what I want to do with it with nonfiction, what I want to do with it.
So other units?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So you kind of mentioned this, but what are you saying that shows the strategy is successful?
I'm seeing a lot of the kids who don't normally engage with things. They're looking at the slides, and they're making sure they take their notes and getting involved with discussions, adding things onto their drawings. Some of them will even like send me questions on Land School and things like that, where they have a little bit of feedback where they don't have to risk, you know, sounding dumb in front of other people.
Okay.
So that's fun.
Awesome. So that sounds like it was really successful, which is basically what progress has been made toward the goal. So do you, just kind of looking at your numbers, how do you think the progress is towards, what was it, 95, 85?
I think it was 85.
85, 95, they're both really high numbers. How do you feel was the progress been made towards that goal?
I think we're making the progress there. I think now the issue is sustaining it.
Yeah.
Because it's like we were talking about with the Schlechte Center things. When it's new, everybody's super into it, and then it stops being quite as cool when it's not as new anymore. So just making sure that it's something that has value for them, and making sure that they have their computers.
Yes.
And bring them.
Yes, that is half the battle. Okay, and then so what did you learn?
I learned that I have trouble letting them go do stuff on their own, I knew that kind of already. I'm a little type A. I'm really type A. And so I like to be like, no, do this instead. Like, here, fix that.
Right.
As opposed to letting them figure it out. I think I've learned how to incorporate just from a materials or programs standpoint, how to incorporate Pear Deck and how to like turn it on and figure out how to put the slides in. So that's just for procedural thing. That's cool. And I learned that a lot of the kids that I kind of thought weren't into it, they're willing to try if they've got something that seems fun for them.
Yeah.
A lot of the kids really got into the hip hop and Shakespeare and were arguing about like, oh no, I know that that's hip hop because it's this song. And I'm just like, okay, that's from Macbeth, but all right.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on, what surprised you?
I think one of the things that surprised me is how they struggle with searching for things on Google. Like we had the part where it's, research an actor or actress and if they've ever been in Shakespeare, and they needed a lot of guidance for what am I supposed to put into Google to see? Because they would just put in the actor's name and then they'd be like, is this Shakespeare? Is this Shakespeare? All the way down the line. I'm like, okay, let's clarify that a little bit. So even though they're so steeped in technology and even though they're so savvy about some things, for other things, they don't really have the tools for it yet. And so I need to be more aware of that and explicit when I'm helping them in terms of, and just instead of just being like, well, just put it into Google, give them a suggestion of like, okay, so this search query might be a good way to do it. And that's what I ended up doing with the other classes as we went through the day, saying it might be a good idea to search put the name here, performed Shakespeare, and that'll get you a more direct answer. And then by then they were all like finding Adam Sandler and Will Smith. And like, Will Smith was in Hip Hop Juliet. Why was there a Hip Hop Romeo and Juliet? Anyway,
Nice.
it was cute.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
And then what roadblocks are you running into? So kind of like the kids not knowing how to search things. Is there any other ones?
Yeah, well, the kids who don't have their computer or their computer's not charged, and even if they're looking on with somebody, I feel like their kind of side along doesn't work with it as well.
Right.
And one of the issues that I'm seeing kind of already is some of them aren't super comfortable with the self-directed. They want to be told exactly what they need to write down. And if they don't have that, they feel very like unwilling to write it down, even though, you know, with the biography.com part where they're looking up the facts about Shakespeare's life, I was like, we're going to go over it so you can make sure you have the right information. Just fill in the stuff that you're sure about. And some of the kids I would come around and they'd just be like, is this right? Can I write this down?
Yeah.
So,
Just kind of building confidence with that type of thing. Okay.
yeah. And working around that learned helplessness that you run into sometimes. If this is too hard, I quit.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so now we're on the second part of the questions where we kind of talk about improvements in furthering if we decide to go further. So the first question is, do you want to keep using the strategy as it is?
I do. I think it's a useful way to make the notes a little bit more interesting. It's also fun for me because I get to explore other things. Like I added in the TED Ed talk about like iambic pentameter because that's one of the things that they struggle with a lot. And I think it helped some of them. Some of them were still struggling a little bit, but you know, it's a good way to make it more interesting because notes days can kind of drag, even when you're going through as fast as you can. And sometimes if you're trying to go fast, you don't have time to actually deal with their questions. So it's nice to have something built in where they can ask a question. Like I could have them put in a question and we could address it right then.
Okay. So the next thing is, do you want to revisit how you'll use the teaching strategy? Or are you just kind of happy with how it's going, kind of using it as notes?
Yeah, I'm happy with how that's going. I think maybe like later, like maybe sometime in second semester, once I've done it a few more times and feel really comfortable with it that way, we can maybe look at talking about other applications for it. But I think it lends itself really well to the notes more than most of the other stuff that we do, because most of the other stuff, like, assessment wise, was mostly writing. And so we may talk about later ways to use it with that. But.
Okay. Do you want to choose a new strategy, or are you happy with Pear Deck?
I'm happy with Pear Deck. I think Pear Deck's a good one. I don't want to add too many new things because that defaults into the like, I do this thing once and then I never do it again.
Right. Okay. So that kind of said, so looking at the goal and how we did it, do you want to change the way we measure progress towards the goal?
So the measure would be the engagement form?
Yeah, just kind of doing like the informal engagement form.
Yeah, I like that. I think that works pretty well in terms of just being able to take a snapshot of the kids and see where they are.
Yeah, have something kind of quantifiable. Okay, cool. And then the last one is, do you want to change the goal? So that's like using technology for student engagement.
No, I want to keep that as a goal because that's something that's progressively more important for what we're doing, both, you know, with the professional development that we're doing and as a school that's moving to the one-to-one. I want to make sure that I'm using it and not just like, this is the thing you carry around with you all day and
never use it.
Never use.
Yes. And we are doing that like true accountability and all that stuff for student engagement. Okay, good. So now we're on to the second part of questions. As crazy as that sounds. So planning next actions. This is just kind of talking about whether or not you think we should meet again and like if we need to do any task and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so it's like, when should we meet again if we need to meet again? I guess we could kind of say that we'd meet again before we do the next Pear Deck.
Yeah, we could meet again before we do like notes for the next unit.
Okay, yeah. And then we can kind of, so what tasks have to be done before we meet?
I'd like to look over our notes and like make sure that those are the terms we want to deal with.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being like, we'll just put the terms from there. And kind of see if there's anything that we need to revise from last year based on the way that we dealt with. It's nonfiction next, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
After Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
When will those tasks be done? Well, we just kind of said like before we start the new unit, just kind of where we land in that. Because sometimes I finish a unit before you do, or you finish before me. So does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're probably going to finish Romeo and Juliet before I am. Not gonna
Well,
lie.
I don't. Who will do them? I feel like we're just kind of coming into this together.
As a ninth grade team.
Yes, we're the ninth grade team. Not to answer questions for you. On the last one, so I guess our new goal is just kind of still using Pear Deck for student engagement. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how committed are you to this goal now?
I am very committed to this goal. Is 1 the high or is 5 the high?
It doesn't say, but I like to think that 5 is the high.
That makes sense. Okay, so we'll do 5.
Yes. All right. So 5 is feeling super committed. So I guess just basically in the future we can come up with this and just use kind of the same Pear Deck approach for student engagement.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being my guinea pig through this process.
Well, thanks for helping me with Pear Deck.
Yes, it was fun.